My name is Glenn Smyth, founder and CEO of Agile to Agile. The topic for this video is what is enterprise architecture? Before we look at addressing that question, let's take a step back up and look at the question of what is architecture. So architecture is the design of complex systems and the components that make up that system and how they interact with each other. It is not the design of the solution or the delivery of each of the individual components. As I said earlier, it's the design of the overall system, what components are in it and how they interact with each other. So if you look at the civil architecture as an analogy, if we are designing a garden shed, because it's not a very complex system, it doesn't have many components, there's no real need for architecture. However, you're designing a large house, it certainly starts to become valuable. If you're looking at a shopping centre or an industrial estate, it becomes an absolute requirement, and similarly, you're designing a city or town plan, it's absolutely mandatory. So, because town or city planning is at the highest level of design in the civil architecture space, that is the closest analogy to enterprise architecture. And so that's our first attempt at defining enterprise architecture, is that it's the equivalent of town planning for an organization. It would be generally agreed within our field that city or town planning is a reasonable, if imperfect, analogy for enterprise architecture. However, if we look below that, it's an unfortunate statement, but true at the moment, that there are probably as many different definitions of enterprise architecture as there are people operating in the field. And the critical point of difference at the moment is whether or not enterprise architecture is just restricted to technology design or also includes business design, or business architecture, if you prefer that term. We are firmly in the camp that enterprise architecture includes both technology design and business design. And perhaps uniquely, at least as far as we are aware, we also believe it covers people design. And by that we mean looking at the roles and how they interact with the business and IT systems, and making sure that your business and IT systems are cognizant of the skill sets and their target audience, be it your clients or your staff, and that's what we mean by people design. Okay, so that gives you an analogy. So now to our actual one-line definition of enterprise architecture. We believe enterprise architecture is the alignment, and that's a critical word, the alignment of business design, people design, and technology design, so that together they can deliver on business intent. Now, obviously implied by that definition is our view that it includes business design, people design, and technology design. But the critical word there is about alignment. And enterprise architecture, what its value add and what it really brings to the table is that alignment and aligning those three design disciplines so that together they can deliver on your business intent. Okay, so beyond that definition, I think another way of displaying it requires me, first of all, to give you a brief introduction to the Agile to Agile integrated architecture framework. Our framework is made up of an X and a Y axis. The X axis is the levels of design, and the Y axis is the domains of design. And so let's look at the domains of design first. The domains of design are broken into 4 different categories: business intent, business design, people design, and technology design. And then you can expand those categories. So we look at business design. Business design breaks into 6 domains of design. So business design is made up of user experience design, business process design, business capability design, information management or information architecture, channel design, and business security design. And within technology designs category, there are 10 designs of domain. And you can see that in our framework and read more about our framework on our website. But if we look at the y-axis and the domains, the levels of design rather, it starts with strategic design, then moves into conceptual design, then logical, and finally physical design. And that brings us to one of the simplest ways of defining enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture is about traversing that framework at the strategic level of design. So looking at what is the business intent we're trying to achieve over a strategic planning horizon, and then what does that mean for our business design, our people design, our technology design, and each of the domains of design within those categories of design. And that's pretty much a simplistic definition, but that's pretty much all there is to enterprise architecture, is traversing that framework and filling it all out. But critically, enterprise architecture is both a noun and a verb. So traversing that framework will complete for you the set of architects, our current state and our target state in each of those domains of design, and to what extent they support or require changing in order to deliver on our business intent. That's what we refer to as enterprise architecture now, essentially the set of artifacts that get delivered through that process. And by the way, it also delivers reference architectures and principles are the equivalent of building codes in the civil architecture analogy, that make sure that as we go through and execute the transformation that are required to deliver on our strategic business intent, we are cognizant of those outcomes, and those building codes help to guide our delivery to ensure that we stay back on track to those business intent. If you don't have what we call enterprise architecture, the verb, and that must include at a minimum processes that help translate those artifacts into a executable roadmap for your business and a set of projects that have business buy-in and business backing. It must have a process about how enterprise architecture and those artifacts can influence investment and prioritization decision making, and it must have processes that ensure that the solutions as they're designed adhere to those enterprise architecture principles or building codes, and that's generally referred to as enterprise architecture governance. If you only focus on enterprise architecture, the noun, and have not the verb, it is highly likely, if not inevitable, that you end up with what is generally referred to as an ivory tower architecture, or an architecture that doesn't actually influence project delivery or influence your investment and prioritization process and the funding mechanism in your organization. If you'd like to hear more about our view of enterprise architecture or how Fragile to Agile can help your organization, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you for listening to the video. I hope it was of value and of interest to you.